Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Gibaradari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Gibaradari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Gibaradari Gopi Jana Vallabha Gibaradari Jaisacinandana Braja Janaranjana Jaisacinandana Braja Janaranjana Jaisacinandana Braja Janaranjana Jaisacinandana Braja Janaranjana Jamuna Tira Vanacharim Jamuna Tira Vanacharim Jamuna Tira Vanacharim Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shrivasadi Go Bhakta-vrinda Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna, Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jaya Radha, Radhanath, Radha, Radhanath, Radhe. Jaya Radha, Damodar, Radha, Damodar, Radhe. Jaya Giri Govardhan, Giri Govardhan, Giri Govardhan, Jaya Giri Govardhan. Jaya Gaura Hari, Gaura Hari, Gaura Hari, Jaya Gaura Hari. Jaya Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Jaya. Shri Shri Radharanath ki, Shri Giriraj Govardhan ki, Shri Gauranga Mahaprabhu Gaur Hari ki, Shri Radha Damodar Krishna Yasoda Mai ki jai. Kartik Mas ki, Transcendental Diary ki, His Grace Arisori Prabhu ki, His Divine Grace Shri Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada ki, O Premanandi, all glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to assembled devotees. All glories to Guru and Gauranga. Feet of Srila Prabhupada. So we're continuing with the Transcendental Diary. This is chapter 2, Sri Vrindavan Dham, December 10th, 1975. So this is a conversation, a morning walk conversation. Morning walks are always fascinating. Devotees often bring up controversial subjects just to get Prabhupada's reaction. Akshayananda Swami initiated the discussion this morning by mentioning a questionable statement made by a senior devotee in a class recently. He quotes, "I was told by one devotee that the acharya does not have to be a pure devotee." Unquote. Prabhupada stopped abruptly. What? Prabhupada's reaction. Prabhupada was annoyed. Who is that rascal? Who said? Who is that rascal? The acharya does not require to be a pure devotee. Nitai said it. He said that Lord Brahma is the acharya in the Brahma Sampradaya, but yet he is sometimes afflicted by passion. So therefore, it appears that the acharya does not have to be a pure devotee. So does it not seem right? So who is that rascal? I want to know. Who has said? Nitai Das. Prabhupada was indignant and denounced such a speculative mentality. He manufactured his own idea, therefore he is rascal. Nitai has become an authority? No, actually he said that he thought. He thought something rascaldom, and he is expressing that. Therefore he is more rascal. He walked on again, digging down to the real cause of the comments. These things are going on. As soon as he reads some books, he becomes an acharya, whatever rascal he may be. So there's no doubt that Lord Brahma is a pure devotee. Akshananda asked, whatever he may be, he is acharya. Prabhupada answered. Then he stopped again and brought in another example. Then Krishna is also passionate. Krishna danced with so many gopis. Therefore he is passionate. These things are to be seen in this way, that such exalted persons sometimes become passionate. So how much shall we be careful? This is the instruction. Then we petty things, petty persons, how much we shall be careful. It is not that acharya has become passionate, therefore I shall become passionate. I am strict follower of acharya. These rascals say like this. Srila Prabhupada gave a lengthy critique, including commenting on various gurus and writers who, unable to understand Lord Krishna's central nature, still want to comment on his words or that on the literature that describe him. They make him appear an ordinary man, only to imitate him. There are others who think that they can understand him simply by reading the Gita or Bhagavatam, despite Krishna's statement that out of many millions of persons, only one may understand him. I just want to read something from Prabhupada's purport to the verse from chapter 4, text 2, Bhagavad Gita, where Krishna says, you know the verse? Text 2. Evam parampara praptam imam rajasaya vido sa kalanaya mahata yoga nasta parantapaha. So Krishna is saying to Arjuna, this supreme science was thus received to the chain of disciplic succession, and the saintly kings understood it in that way. But in course of time, the succession was broken. And therefore, the science as it is, appears to be lost. It's not actually lost, but it's because of the distortion of our misunderstanding and by interpretation, by bogus, as Prabhupada describes them. And then it kind of gets lost in that way. Srila Prabhupada says in the purport, it's clearly stated that the Gita was especially meant for the saintly kings because they were to execute its purpose in ruling over the citizens. Certainly, Bhagavad Gita was never meant for the demoniac persons who would dissipate its value for no one's benefit and would devise all types of interpretations according to personal whims. As soon as the original purpose was scattered by the motives of the unscrupulous commentators, there arose the need to re-establish the disciplic succession. 5,000 years ago, it was detected by the Lord himself, and the disciple succession was broken. And therefore, he declared that the purpose of the Gita appeared to be lost. In the same way, at the present moment, also there are so many editions of the Gita, especially in English, but almost all of them are not according to authorized discipling succession. There are innumerable interpretations rendered by different mundane scholars, but almost all of them do not accept the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, although they make a good business on the words of Sri Krishna. The spirit is demoniac because demons do not believe in God, but simply enjoy the property of the Supreme. Since there is a great need of an edition of the Gita in English, as it is received by the Parampara, disciplic succession system, an attempt is made herewith to fulfill this great want. Bhagavad Gita, accepted as it is a great boon to humanity. But if it is accepted as a treatise of philosophical speculations, it is simply a waste of time. Prabhupada ki. So Prabhupada is very fixed on that. He's very determined that the philosophy of Krishna consciousness not be compromised. And therefore he is very, very protective over the devotees, especially in the early days of ISKCON. Prabhupada wanted them, as we'll read later, to be not to go out of what his teachings are. He was very, very protective over that. Yes. Srila Prabhupada said that a guru, acharya, is essential for proper realization. He referred to his early morning translation work from verse 30 of the 7th chapter of Srimad Bhagavatam. You'll find in today's tape that Prahlad Maharaj is recommending, he quotes from Prahlad Maharaj, spiritual life begins by Guru Shushrusha, by serving Guru. Srila Goswami says, Adu Gurash Varayam. The first beginning is to take shelter of a bona fide spiritual master. Sada Dharma Prichat. Then inquire from him about the spiritual path. Sadhu Marganu Manam. Follow the previous acharyas. These are the steps. In Bhagavad Gita, Arjuna said, Shishashtaham Sadimam. Now I am become your disciple. Teach me. And these rascals are more than Arjuna. There is no need of guru. He says. Sisyastaham. Why? He was already friend. Why should he submit himself as disciple? That is the beginning of spiritual life. This conversation eventually led into another controversial subject, in which Chaitya Guru said, one life member's wife was very upset. She came to see you with a rascal yogi. He said that the Vedas mention that we can drink and that women and men have equal rights. Prabhupada acknowledged the meeting with a nod of his head. Chaitya Guru went on. Then as she was also saying the same thing, you answered her. Prabhupada is saying, okay, if women and men have equal rights, why don't you beget children in the womb of your husband? Prabhupada smiled as he recalled the incident. This happened a few days before. She was very upset, Chaitya Guru said. She said, Prabhupada sometimes says things like that which are unreasonable. Everyone laughed loudly. No, Prabhupada said. I said that if you have equal rights, then make some arrangement. Sometimes you become pregnant. Sometimes he becomes pregnant. Why there is not equal right? Chaitya Guru explained. She told me, Prabhupada, sometimes there are things that we all feel ashamed. But in speaking spiritual understanding, Prabhupada broadly pronounced, we cannot make any compromise. What to speak of in Mauritius, in Chicago, I told. Then Prabhupada related an exchange he had with a stewardess on a plane journey in America. She had taken exemption to a TV show in which Prabhupada had declared that men and women were not equal. I think that was the same stewardess, Arikesh offered, who came in the back and asked us why the Swamiji doesn't like women. Prabhupada was apologetic for the misunderstanding, but he wasn't about to alter the truth. No, I didn't say that I don't like women, but I cannot say that equal rights. How can I say? First of all, show equal rights. Your husband becomes sometimes pregnant, then you become pregnant alternately. Prabhupada explained that even in Russia, where they had tried to make people equal, still they are managers and workers. So what sort of equality isn't ever possible? When Arikesh mentioned that nowadays there are many women senators and ambassadors, Prabhupada still did not concede that this means equality. That simply requires education, he said. But by nature, the woman's body is different from man's. However, when Chaitya Guru took his comments to imply that this difference means that women are subordinate, Prabhupada corrected him. No, not subordinate. Actually, the occupations are different. That is another mistake. Just like the leg is walking and the head is directing. So although the occupation is different, both of them are important. We require the head and leg also. If simply head is there, if there is no leg, then who will walk? This is the understanding, not equal. Everyone must have his separate duties to serve the whole. That is arrangement. This is real understanding. The most important part of the body is head. But that does not mean that the leg is not important. Leg is important in its work, and head is important in its work. So we require both, head and tail, both. Not that simply leg or simply head. But when we make comparative study, we can understand that head is more important than the leg. If you cut your leg, you can live. But if you cut your head, you will die. Therefore, the conclusion is, head is more important than the leg. Comparative study. Otherwise, head is also required and leg is also required. You collect some flowers, nice flowers, and add it to some green foliage. It becomes more beautiful. Simply flower is not so beautiful. But when it's arrayed with some green foliage, then it becomes more beautiful. So we have to take it in that sense. But comparatively, the flower is more important than the foliage. But both of them are required. Arikesh added. The foliage also becomes beautiful because of the flower. Yes, that is God's creation. Prabhupada agreed. Just like these trees, they are condemned. But still with trees we can make a beautiful garden. And that is very enjoyable. That is God's arrangement. For an ordinary man, a life void of family affairs is almost unthinkable. Thus, Prahlad Maharaj's instructions to develop detachment from worldly affairs are very difficult to appreciate, except by those with a very broad understanding and a genuine desire to seek out the real meaning of life. Sitting on Janasana during class, the perfect representative of the Goswami, Srila Prabhupada, explained how painless this process can be by simply directing the inherent tendency to form bonds back towards Krishna. This is bhakti process. Not that we have to bring a separate attachment. It has to be cleansed. That is described in Narada Pancharatra. Sarvo padi vinirmuktam tat paridvaina nirmalam rishikena rishikesha sevana bhaktir uttamam. Consciousness is there, attachment is there, but it's being covered by so many designations. Just like we have got feelings for raising children. Attachment, that is attachment. So what Mother Yasoda is doing? She is attached to Krishna. And that is Vrindavan. The same thing is otherwise. Vrindavan life means all attachment to Krishna. Mother Yasoda is attached to Krishna. Nanda Maharaj is attached to Krishna. The cowherd boys are attached to Krishna. The cows and calves are attached to Krishna. Radharani is attached to Krishna. The trees are attached to Krishna. The flowers are attached to Krishna. The water is attached to Krishna. That is Vrindavan. Vrindavan means the central attachment is Krishna. That is Vrindavan. So if you create the central attachment for Krishna, then it is Vrindavan. Then you can create Vrindavan anywhere. Any family, any society, any country. Just make the point of attachment Krishna. And that is Vrindavan. That is required. That is the Krishna consciousness movement. So this is Vrindavan. This is Sri Radharanath temple is also wherever the Lord is worshipped, where the deities are present, where there's devotees chanting Hare Krishna, it becomes a dham, holy dham. Prabhupada said, I'm in New York, and this is Vaikuntha. His consciousness is permeating there. And he had that, the pure devotee can create such an atmosphere of Vrindavan, Vaikuntha. Golok Vrindavan. So it's the consciousness, wherever you are, in whatever adhikari you are in, household life, renounced household, renounced life, brahmachari, sannyas, we can still practice Krishna. This is a special mercy of this Krishna consciousness movement. Bhaktivinoda Thakur sings like that. Grihe Thakur, Vane Thakur. Grihe Thakur, whether you're in household life, Vane Thakur, whether you renounce household life, it's okay not to worry. Just chant Hare Krishna. Just practice Krishna consciousness. And that is Vrindavan. Immediately after class, as Prabhupada relaxed in his darshan room, waiting for breakfast, Harikesh asked some questions about Lord Brahma. He explained that he had to read in the Srimad Bhagavatam that every living entity upon leaving the spiritual world first falls to the level of Brahma. He wondered whether that means that each jiva becomes a Lord Brahma in charge of his own universe, or as some devotees have interpreted, that he falls to the planet Brahma Loka. Prabhupada confirmed that each living being becomes a Lord Brahma. Isn't that you all were Lord Brahmas? Each living being, that means every one of us, were Lord Brahma. Prabhupada confirmed that each living being becomes a Lord Brahma. A little incredulously, I tried to grasp this inconceivable fact. But that means each and every living being has its own universe? Prabhupada responded rather sharply. Oh, Srimad Bhagavatam is wrong? You do not think it is possible for Krishna to give everyone his own universe? For Krishna, anything is possible. We brought up the statement that at the end of the universe, Lord Brahma, as a pure devotee and the head of our spiritual lineage, goes back to Godhead. Prabhupada confirmed that this does not happen to every Brahma. The living beings begin the entanglement in material life from that status and then fall further down as their material desires increase. Today, during Prabhupada's morning massage on the roof, I tentatively asked if I could continue as his servant. I explained that I had become very attached to personally serving him. This is Harisori Prabhu. And I had no specific engagement in return to. Although Gopal Krishna wanted me to go to Calcutta to help manage the temple, I frankly admitted that I had no experience with management in India, and thus I didn't really feel qualified. Prabhupada thought for a moment, and then asked what my educational background was, in particular whether I knew any foreign language. I confessed to having no talent for learning foreign languages. In fact, it was my worst subject in school. He listened to what I said, then sent me to call Arikesh. So he asked Arikesh, he wants to remain with me. What do you think? Well, he's doing very nicely. I think it'd be a good thing for you to have a steady servant. What about Nitai? Nitai is in Bombay renewing his visa, and he's supposed to rejoin Prabhupada there. Arikesh was forthright. Well, Nitai joined up with us in America, but when we got here, he wanted to leave and stay to develop the Gurukul. There's no guarantee he won't want to leave again in another few months. But Harisori can remain as your permanent servant, and he won't be disturbed by any more changes. The Prabhupada tipped his head. All right. I'm ecstatic. I can't believe my good fortune, Harisori's. I can't believe my good fortune. 3 or 4 weeks ago, I was cleaning the temple floors, and I am to be His Divine Grace's permanent personal servant. This is solely His mercy because I have absolutely no qualification. Unlike His previous servants, I can't cook, type, or do anything useful. Yet He's keeping me on just to purify me. Although I have no particular ability to do any of the servant's duties, I've tried to do my best to perform whatever menial service Prabhupada has given me. It seems that because of this service attitude, Prabhupada is prepared to keep me on. Service attitude. Rupa Goswami says in the Nectar of Instruction, also in the preface, practice of Krishna depends on the attitude of the practitioner. the attitude we develop. So, irrespective of qualifications we may feel, how unqualified we may feel, but if we have the right attitude towards devotional and embrace it full on, that is very pleasing to the spiritual master and even to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. We can do amazing things. I mean, all these disciples of Prabhupada, they were in certain fields, they weren't qualified, but they simply depended on Prabhupada. They simply surrendered to Prabhupada, and because of that, Prabhupada gave them so much mercy, rated their good fortune. Yes. December 11th, 1975. Prabhupada always begins his morning walk at dawn, when the still, fresh morning air and quiet atmosphere are healthy for both body and mind. Dawn is the time when the sun is about to, it's breaking. It's not actually the sunrise, but it's the dawn is the period before the sun shines, sun comes out. And it's very good time. It is in the mode of goodness. Few people out there. Only the occasional bullock or buffalo ambles slowly past, straining with heavily loaded carts. The drivers peer with somnambulant curiosity from under thick blankets at the Western Vaishnavas, struggling to keep up with their master. Prabhupada would walk for his age, he was like 70, over 70 at that time. He was almost 75 years old. And he would walk very briskly, and the disciples would struggle. Even they were much younger. They were in their 20s. They would struggle to catch up with him. Vaishnavas struggling to keep up with their master, straining to hear his every word as he enlightens and entertains us with his vision of the world seen through the eyes of Shastra. So Prabhupada always strictly adheres to the authoritative statements of the Vedic literature, yet he expertly assesses our particular time, place and circumstance and delivers the Vedic conclusions in a way that is easy for us to understand and apply. Despite his obvious success in spreading Krishna consciousness without any loss of its true potency, there are those who criticize this adaptation of the principle of sadhana. These people sometimes confuse the minds of these neophyte disciples with other ideas. So this is Acharya. Acharya means one who teaches by example. And Prabhupada assimilated all the Vedic teachings. And in a way, it was palatable for the Western. Therefore, Prabhupada's books were so amazing. And it appealed to everyone of all languages, of all cultures, because he made it in such a way that he presented it that it was really understandable even to the layman, but yet very, very deep, simple language, very, very deep realizations, and we simply have to accept that from Prabhupada. And he adapted it. Therefore, he was so successful. To date, I don't have the stats. How much literature you know is from the time? You know, you have some stats? Yes? No? Billions? Yeah, it's nice to get some stats on the book distribution, propaganda throughout the world, worldwide. All over India, many Babajis and Gurus claim to be authorities on spiritual life, yet they find fault with Prabhupada's honest efforts to rescue the fallen, conditioned souls. Prabhupada is always criticized. Even for going to the West, it was taboo at that time to consider a saintly person, especially to cross the ocean. They said it was taboo, it was not. But Prabhupada followed the instruction of his predecessor, Acharyas. Bhaktivinoda Thakur had this great vision. He was a visionary. He had the foresight of spreading Lord Chaitanya's movement to the Western world. And somebody had to do it. And some great personality would come. They had that conviction that at some point, will take this movement to the Western world. But although Prabhupada was, we know this history of Prabhupada, how he battled even to get a visa, get a green card to go to America. Srimati Muraji, you are old, you will not survive the journey. So many ways of putting Prabhupada up. But Prabhupada was so determined, just to carry the instruction of his spiritual master. And we know that it was such a momentous task. But still he was criticized. Even for bringing Western disciples to India, he was criticized. You're giving them sannyas, you're giving them Brahman. What is their qualification? So like that they were being criticized. And you're giving women Brahman initiation in the Western. Prabhupada had to adapt to the Western culture, and he could do that. He did that. He did that. Women could get Brahmin. Women could be dressing the deity, cooking for the deities, doing all deity worship like that. And in India, it seemed like taboo. Very unlikely they will. I don't know up till now. It's still like that. Yes. Yeah. So, Prabhupada he took a lot of criticism. Even from his own god brothers. What to speak of the Mayavads and different types of Transcendentals. Here in Vrindavan, Srila Prabhupada especially protective of his vulnerable young disciples, always watching to see that we do not become infected with ideas that will poison our spiritual lives. He strictly forbids us to live outside of the temple, and in the past posed strong opposition to the tendency of some devotees to go off to Radhakund or to live with a particular Babaji there. He was very much on his guard to see that his spiritual children are not beguiled by envious or ambitious spiritualists. He knows that such people can easily undermine our faith and cause havoc in our spiritual progress. He constantly insists to the temple leaders that they may be alert in this regard. Therefore, Prabhupada was very guarded about that. And he said, everything you need to know is in my books. There is no need to go outside of my books. He was very, very thorough about that. Everything you need to know is in my books. Yeah, he was. But the tendency was there. As Prabhupada said, the devotees are very vulnerable. When you go to Vrindavan, and if you're not within the confines of sadhana, and you're just wandering around, you look like a sore thumb. You stick out like a sore thumb, just like, even if you're a devotee, if you're not engaged properly, because Vrindavan is very intense. Those who've been there. And I know my first trip to Vrindavan was the Kartik semester. I don't know if they still have it still. The Kartik semester is, when you go to Vrindavan, you enroll in the VIHE, and there's different courses offered. And that is your sadhana. From the time you get up, you go Mangalarti, Prabhupada, you hear Bhagavatam, and straight after breakfast, you go to Katha, you go into a class. And that goes on for maybe 4 hours. There's break in between. Then you take lunch. There's no time for Maya. That's how intense it was. And then that was very nice for us. And you were graded. You were given points for your attendance to Mangalarti, for your attendance to class, for your attendance to this. And at the end of when you got your record card, you got all this, you got ticked off very nicely. So we go to Vrindavan for that, not just to go on a holiday or shopping spree. No, it's go to here and associate, and that's the best way, is to take the dust of the lotus feet of the devotees who the resident Brijpas is there. And from the right source. Prabhupada is very saying that, don't get misled. There's so many different. Even when Lord Chaitanya, after Lord Chaitanya left this world, they said there were so many Apa Sampradayas just sprung up. Apa mean deviate. There was like 13 different Sampradayas just sprang up. Jai Sri Sri Radharanath ki, Sri Sri Nitai Gaur Hari Giriraj Govardhan ki. Jai. Apa means deviations. And they messed up. They confused. They distorted. They took Krishna, the practice of, like sajas. Saja is one type of deviation. Becoming a saja means taking the process very cheaply. Yes. Or imitating the pure devotees of the Lord. Sajas. And those are the different types. 13 different Apa Sampradayas sprang up. And therefore, Krishna is saying, time after time he has to come, if not himself, he sends his representatives to put things right. Like I read in that verse, isn't it? It appears to be lost. This science appears to be lost. Therefore, he is to come from time to time to fix it. So he sends his empowered representatives to make sure that we don't get cheated, we don't get shortchanged. We get the right message of Krishna. The Prabhupada was saying early on, we read in his purport, that so many editions of Bhagavad Gita. To date, I think there's like 600 of Bhagavad Gita floating around. And all with different variations of different scholars, impersonalists. Even the Prime Minister of India, one of the Prime Ministers previously, he also, Radha Krishna, was his name? Also presented, but so Prabhupada felt a need to present Bhagavad Gita as it is. There was a need. That's also explained in the Bhagavad Gita, in the introduction. What was the need? There's so many. What was the need? And Prabhupada explains very nicely there. The need for Bhagavad Gita is to establish Krishna as the absolute truth. Krishna is the absolute truth. And everything, the Siddhanta, the conclusions, must all point to Krishna as the absolute truth. And we understand knowledge is disseminated in three ways: Sadhu, Shastra, and Guru, three-pronged. Sadhu, Shastra, and Guru. And this is a very, very important aspect, that we get things straight. What the Sadhu is saying, what the Shastra is saying, and what the Guru is saying, in essence must say the same thing. There may be different ways of wording, but the Siddhanta, the conclusion, must arrive at the same, that Krishna is the supreme, absolute truth. That is 100%. That is the correct, absolute truth. So this is what Srila Prabhupada, because he's coming in that line of disciplic succession. And if you read Prabhupada throughout his books, he's always referencing from previous acharyas, isn't it? Sridhar Swami, Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Bhaktivinoda Thakur, Baladev Vidyabhushan. In Bhagavad Gita, in the beginning, he pays tribute to Baladev Vidyabhushan. Yes. So this is how we know we're getting the proper, genuine, concise knowledge. And Prabhupada took pains and strains to make sure that the devotees are not deviated by going outside of his, and he would get very upset. And there's many incidents we see like that. Yeah, he's saying, yeah, in Vrindavan, Srila Prabhupada is especially protective of his vulnerable young disciples, always watching to see that we do not become infected with ideas that will poison our spiritual lives. So one thing you hear different will destroy your whole. One word you hear differently will spoil your whole, will poison you. Especially now in this time, there's so many distortions of things. Now there's Facebook and WhatsApp, people are sending things. You just be careful. Just be very, very careful what you read, what you assimilate, and what you're not sure of, you should check with your guru. Yes, or with the bona fide personalities that are there. Don't accept everything on face value because it's in Facebook or it's like that. Just be careful. He is very much on his guard to see that his spiritual children are not beguiled by envious or ambitious spiritualists. He knows that such people can easily undermine our faith and cause havoc in our spiritual progress. He constantly insists to the temple leaders that they be alert in this regard. Of course, when we all joined, we were very naive. We were in this Kanishta mentality. Kanishta means our faith is not, there's no faith practically. And if somebody comes up with some powerful, we'll become overcome and we will say, yes, you are correct. We'll join you. Isn't like that. Kanishta, but we don't have to stay Kanishta. We have to elevate ourselves by association with those on the higher level, Madhyam, Uttamas. Like that, we can. These impediments to our spiritual life do not always come from non-Gaudiya Sampradayas, elements. Prabhupada is aware that some of his godbrothers are less than enthusiastic about his achievements. The natural respect for our spiritual elders we imbibed from him could result in an unsuspecting fraternization with members of their mats. This could lead us vulnerable to subtle impurities, derailing our dependency on Srila Prabhupada. So this is also something he is constantly combating. So this was the time when they were going to some Swami there, a Gaudiya Swami, very much advanced. I wouldn't mention his name, but he was very Rasik. He would give Rasika Bhav classes beyond what Prabhupada would teach us. And some of his devotees were going there. And Prabhupada wasn't happy about that. And later the JBC stepped in and stopped that, and cut it off. It was very commendable that they stopped that. Those have been. Prabhupada said, when you're ready to hear these things, Prabhupada, even in Krishna Bhakti, didn't pick up esoteric. We want to hear about Krishna's pastimes, but how purified is our consciousness to hear. One time Prabhupada was in a life member's house in Bombay, and his life member was very enthusiastic to see all the devotees, and he had his big family there, his wife, his children, his grandchildren, great-grandchildren. And Prabhupada gave a class, and then they said, Prabhupada, speak about Rasa Leela. And Prabhupada looked at him, Prabhupada said, I'm not qualified to speak about Rasa Leela. Prabhupada is saying this. I'm not qualified to speak about, all we know Prabhupada is qualified, but he has to sense the audience, whether they are qualified. You understand? So like that, Prabhupada is very, very... And of course his disciples were there also, he had to be very mindful of that, not to speak anything that they will quote in the future. Yes, Prabhupada spoke about Rasa Leela. No, so he was very mindful, very, very intelligently. Yeah. So this man insisted, and Prabhupada said, no, I'm not qualified to speak about it. And then said, this man said, no, I'm qualified to hear. And Prabhupada said, you're qualified to hear, I'm not qualified to speak. And he dropped it at that. Yeah, so Rasik, all these Rasika things, we may not be ready to hear all these things. So we will just chant Hare, do our sadhana, and carry on like that. Not get too excited about all the Rasika, esoteric pastimes of the Lord. During his morning walks, Akshayananda Swami sought sastic verification of our standards of chanting japa. Would some have faltered? Of course we accept, he said. When you tell us to chant 16 rounds, we accept that figure in perfect faith. You the Acharya, but what if we wanted to convince others? Is there any Shastric or Vedic verse that we can refer to corroborate that at least they must chant 16 rounds or that many number of names? No, Prabhupada answered. In the Shastra it is not said like that. It is said, Sankhya Purvaka. You must fix up in numerical strength, whatever you can. But I have fixed up 16 rounds because you cannot do. Akshayananda Swami confirmed, that's all we can do. Prabhupada smiled and added with a touch of irony, yes, that is also difficult. If you chant 16 rounds. Akshayananda Swami laughed, yes. Prabhupada continued, otherwise, Haridas Thakur was chanting 3 lakhs. So that is not possible. You should not imitate. But whatever you fix up, you must do. That is wanted. Yes, Akshayananda Swami said. I was told that in the beginning you asked the first disciples to chant 64 rounds. Prabhupada said, yes. They were unable, Akshayananda said. To our laughter he added, then you asked them to chant 32. Prabhupada grinned. Sankhya Purvaka Nama Gana Natibi. Sankhya Purvaka. Oh, numerical strength must be there, and you should follow rigidly. So if they are serious and sincere, it means that the 16 will increase to continuously chanting. Akshayananda Swami said, and you can do also now, Prabhupada said. That's not that because I've finished 16 rounds, you can increase, but that 16 must be finished. Of course, the quality is also important, chanting 16 rounds. Yes, Akshayananda Maharaj agreed. What I mean is, that's to bring us to the platform of chanting constantly. At least we must do that numerical number. If we're fortunate, we may finally be able to chant constantly, day and night. Yes, Prabhupada confirmed. Even Bhaktisiddhanta said if one is not chanting 64 rounds in his time, he said that, he's not a human being. But Prabhupada, he is the Acharya, isn't it? He made it for our, tailor-made for us. Of course, in the beginning, as he said, he wanted them to chant 64 rounds, but Krishna consciousness is very practical. If we chant 64 rounds, it'll take us all day practically. Right? And what about service? Going out, cooking, so many other service, preaching, university. How will you manage all that and do 64 rounds? So Prabhupada, he envisioned that, yes, this Krishna conscious Sankirtan movement. And therefore, 16 rounds minimum. That means you can do more, but not less. If you can do more, that's good. So that's a vow we take to chant. And Prabhupada set the bar for that. Yeah. And he's the Acharya. So that is the reference. All right, we go on. As we walked on, people began to appear here and there. A few at first, the numbers gradually increasing, going about their morning duties in preparation for another bout of daily labor. A few bicyclists passed on, whizzing silently along under self-propulsion, serving at the last moment to avoid seemingly certain collision. More dangerous than cars, Prabhupada commented. Srila Prabhupada then initiated a conversation about his favorite subject, materialistic science. He asked whether scientists acknowledge that there is life on the sun globe. Thus, a long, animated discussion ensued about the defects of scientific speculation and the inability of the godless scientists to solve the real problems of life, birth, death, disease, old age. He walked as far as his halfway mark, a solitary house called Moda Place, then returned at the same brisk pace. The temple bell rang as Prabhupada entered the compound grounds. He walked across the red flagstone and into the temple to greet their lordships, Krishna and Balaram, and give Srimad Bhagavatam class. Just before entering the temple door, he summarized modern society, Hiranyakashipu civilization. In one word, he summarized materialistic modern civilization, Hiranyakashipu civilization. What does Hiranyakashipu represent? Yes? The demon. What does he represent? Yes? Sense gratification. Gold and nice linen, illicit sex life, and sense gratification. That was he saying. Hiranyakashipu civilization. And here we are presenting Prahlad civilization. So this is a struggle. But ultimately Prahlad will come out triumphant. And Hiranyakashipu will be killed. Jai, Hare Krishna. Prabhupada seems especially enlivened from his translation work on the history of Prahlad. Many of his conversations draw graphically from Prahlad's teachings. His classes are strong and powerful, indictments of everything wrong with the modern world. The small child, Prahlad's battle and victory against overwhelming odds by his full dependence on Krishna, is a foot comparison to Prabhupada's own single-handed struggle against a world populated with extremely materialistic people. Today's verse was from the 7th canto, 6th chapter, verse 9. Who is the person who is too much attached to household life on account of being unable to control the senses, and who can liberate himself because he is bound up very strongly with the ropes of affection for family, namely wife, children, relatives, etc.? After reading out the Sanskrit, Prabhupada recalled the morning's conversation and explained the difference between the scientist's approach to life and that of a devotee. The materialists derive enjoyment from killing, not knowing that this will only increase the problems. But the devotees solve all problems and attain happiness by cultivating detachment. He illustrated this by citing an incident from his early days of preaching in the West. The examples are here. Although you are young boys and girls, you have given up so many nonsense things. This is called vairagya, detachment. Meat eating is the general life of the Europeans and Americans. But at the present moment, if someone offers you millions of dollars and he requests you that you take some meat with me, I think you will deny. This is called vairagya. I've actually seen how Gaga Muni was sent to his father, advised him that your father has big business, just take it for Krishna consciousness. So father was very glad, but he offered meat. When Garga Muni said, Father, I cannot take meat, then the father became angry. He drove him away. Hiranyakashipu father. So Garga Muni came back. The young man, father's property. He refused to take it. This is Vairagya. And the whole Krishna conscious movement means Vairagya Vidya, the education of detachment. Also you have in the same mood of Srila Giriraj Swami Maharaj when his father came to visit him in Bombay. He offered him $1 million to come back home. And Giriraj Swami, he refused. He said, no, and he showed, this is my father. Prabhupada is my father. Anyway, you can read all that in the I'll build your temple. It's all very nicely documented there. He referred to Srila Rupa and Sanatana Goswami as examples in recent history of learned and intelligent men who, after having achieved great things materially, practiced the art of detachment to attain the goal of life, voluntarily accepting poverty. This is Indian civilization. This is Vedic civilization. Not to increase material opulence, but to decrease. The more you decrease, you are civilized. But the Western countries, if you instruct them to decrease this nonsense activities, they'll say, oh, this is primitive. This tendency is present. But actually the primitive civilization, not primitive that is very sober civilization, instead of increasing unwanted necessities, decrease it. That is Srimad Bhagavatam. Finally, Prabhupada nicely summed up the meaning of his spiritual movement, and the meaning is presenting to us by the construction of the Krishna Balaram Mandir and guest house. We are interested to construct a nice temple, but we are not interested to construct a very big skyscraper building. We should live very humbly. Vrindavan means everyone is engaged how to keep Krishna in comfort. That is Vrindavan, not for personal comfort. The whole Vrindavan is engaged, beginning from Mother Yasoda, Nanda Maharaj, the young gopis, the young cowherd boys. That is Vrindavan. Krishna is the center. So the more we become engaged with the view to giving Krishna the comfortable position, that is our aim of life. Then we can be liberated. Prabhupada's words are not impractical expressions of idealism. They have the greatest impact because he himself is a very epitome of a Brijbasi, a resident of the Holy Dham. He lived for years in total poverty, without any care except how to preach. He has built a great temple, a grand temple, a guest house, an ashram, and he's still preaching. He goes on expending his energy for Krishna's comfort at the expense of his own, without exhibiting any attachment for sitting down in his spacious quarters in comfortable retirement. So that's amazing. Prabhupada's mood and mission. That he was restless. He wanted, he had in that 12 years he had in the West, you would read how he was traveling extensively to all parts of the, just to spread this Krishna conscious movement. But he had to sacrifice so many. He sacrificed his family. He said, I gave up one for more family to take one big family. The whole world is my family. And that was very magnanimous. This very magnanimous soul. So today we are remembering Srila Prabhupada, his disappearance day. His disappearance and appearance are non-different. And they are full of potency. To hear about such great personalities, to meditate on them, to follow in their footsteps, not imitate them, is a great perfection. It will be our perfection. Yes. Harikesh's article is taking shape, and he read it out this evening, enlivening Srila Prabhupada, and instigating a lively conversation. Prabhupada's idea to show how everything has a single ultimate cause, like scientists' life. Scientists look for life within chemicals, but find none. Yet life is there, and the chemicals act and react in exact ways for a purpose. So according to those purposes, understanding that, he said, should be the goal of knowledge. The moon is also one of Srila Prabhupada's favorite topics. According to scientists, there is no life on the moon, and they say it is doubtful whether there is life on any other planet on our solar system. Prabhupada argued that life is everywhere, on the moon, sun, and every other planet. The word in Bhagavad Gita is sarvagata. What is that? It is all pervading. Sarvagata means it is prevalent everywhere, not just on this earth planet. Sarvagata means it is prevalent throughout the creation, throughout the cosmos. And that includes the moon, the sun. And they all have different types of bodies that can adapt to certain types of lifestyle or physiology. Prabhupada argued that life is everywhere on the moon, sun, and every other planet. He said that even on this planet, life can be seen everywhere in water, air, and on land. This is the statement of Shastra. Living beings are not material but spiritual and exist in all conditions of matter. Prabhupada detailed the progression of material development as described in the third canto of the Bhagavatam. This is Kapila Muni, isn't he? Exponent of Sankhya philosophy. Kapila, the son of Devahuti. He propounded the theory. Thus, philosophy of what's the word I said now? Sankhya philosophy. Yeah, Sankhya means to count, to analyze. Sankhya. So we understand like that. Prabhupada detailed the progression of material development as described in the third canto of Bhagavad. Explained how the individual elements come one after another in a systematic chain of cause and effect. Harishkesh listened attentively in order to incorporate and added information into his work. First there is sound, Prabhupada explained. And from sound, what comes? What generates sound? Yes? Ether. Calm. Sanskrit word is calm, ether. Yes. Then there is friction in the air. When there is friction in the air, then fire comes, electricity. When excessive heat is there, then water comes. Just like we see how immediately after the heat of the summer, the rainy season comes. From water comes earth. If you examine a drop of water, then it dries up, there is some small deposit of earth. Bhumi apo nala vayu kam. Krishna says like that, isn't in the Bhagavad Gita. Earth, water, fire, air, ether. These are my, say, Bhanna Prakriti. They are not conscious. They are dead, inert matter. All the elements have accompanying characteristics and attributes. In this way, by the influence of time, the elements are generated one after another. All the bodies of living beings are made from these elements. So why not the fire bodies? The scientists cannot perceive. The defect is theirs, but they judge everything by their own standards of imperfection and advertise this as knowledge. Thank you very much. Srila Prabhupada ki, Transcendental Diary ki, Srila Prabhupada's disappearance day ki, jai. Thank you very much. Is there any questions or comments? There's no breakfast, so you don't worry about prasadam. You have to fast half day, mandatory fast.
Thank you for the class, Jai Prabhu. I was just thinking about how Srila Prabhupada, he's so expert. He was so expert at preaching in the West. When he came, he would observe how people lived and how they thought. And then he made different adjustments according to time, place, and circumstance, what was needed for preaching to go on nicely. Like, for example, giving women Brahmin initiation, and instead of asking us to chant 64, which initially he wanted us to, he said, okay, just minimum 16. And by making these different adjustments, he would have known the criticism that he would have had to face from his godbrothers and from devotees in India. Right. But we can see his humility in this, that he's not at all concerned with his reputation as much as he's just concerned with how to spread Krishna consciousness. My Guru Maharaj explained to me that the nature of bhakti is that it's restless. So we can see Prabhupada's restlessness and his mercy in wanting to preach regardless of anything, even at the cost of his own reputation, which wasn't even important to him as much as it was just important to share Krishna. I thought that was sweet.
Thank you. Was it a question or?
It was just a comment, sorry.
Thank you very much, that was very nice.
An opportunity to glorify Srila Prabhupada.
Yes, and we should imbibe that also. Like Kapila Muni is speaking to, he says, what are the qualities of a sadhu? Tikshipa karunika surida sarvadeyinam. Tolerance. He was tolerant, like you said, he went to the West. He had to tolerate, isn't? When he first went to America, he stayed with the Agarwals.